The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Wow, Martha was really serious about getting this going, huh?
No, absolutely. She did.
Well, welcome back to the Marketing with Purpose Kit. It's a series of the Bliss Business Podcast, as you may know. Really, in this series, what we're doing is exploring what it really takes for marketing leaders, like our guest today, to create impact that goes beyond the numbers. I'm Mike Liskey, and in each episode, we sit down with CMOs to explore their leadership approach and the strategies that are driving performance, but that more importantly are really resonating with their audience. And together, we'll dive into what's working, what's not, and how purpose and empathy really can transform the way that a brand connects with people. So let's just jump right in and get started. Today, I'm pleased to have back and be joined by a very close friend of the show, Ash Maher. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Falcon Wealth Planning. Ash brings a lot of really deep expertise in digital marketing, strategic growth, as well as client engagement. And so we'll definitely really want to hear his insights. He's demonstrated a track record of managing and optimizing ad budgets, north of $1 million annually, while delivering outstanding ROI, which is key, right, to be able to run budgets like that. Ash also blends technical mastery with empathy-driven innovation, including Gen AI, to enhance the productivity and the revenue of his campaigns. And then as well at Falcon Wealth, Ash is focused on scaling the brand's influence and growth with the goal of really surpassing $1 billion in assets under management. So today, what we're really going to do is we're going to explore bringing purpose and empathy into marketing. And I'm genuinely excited really to have Ash back on the show and to dive in. So Ash, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is exciting stuff.
It is, man. It is. So we'll jump right in. Before I guess we get to all the other topics that we want to talk about today, it's important, I'd love to hear, why was the key point of bringing purpose and empathy into marketing the topic that you chose really to explore with us today, and what makes it really important in today's day and age?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first off, the reality is that, and I'm sure you can look at the statistics, about 60 to 70% of employees across the country are disengaged in the workplace. And a lot of times it's because of practices done in businesses that they're not even aware of, right? They're focused on growth, focused on moving fast and hitting those numbers the way they're supposed to. And a lot of times people who feel they're being treated like a number end up not performing as well as they potentially can. What I'm finding today is that everybody is being led or compelled through some type of hero's journey that they're called on. And if you don't allow that person to come into an environment and be acknowledged for the contribution they could have to the space, then technically you get a bunch of order takers that a lot of times will end up being disengaged in the workplace and not getting the things that they need, that we need done. It kills innovation. It kills the ability to push the needle forward as a collaborative unit. So for me, empathy was a big one, because a lot of times up to this point, especially in the financial industry, it's known notoriously for individuals being treated like a number, being treated not well, pretty much being used and abused until they have nothing left to give. And I wanted to come in and change that. And we found that in my first day at working at Falcon, I said, hey, you guys are going to get the best lead gen possible, but that's not going to be my big act. My big act is going to be creating an environment where people genuinely enjoy working here. And ultimately, we did run into some hiccups along the road of mentalities from the top and the mentalities from the middle management and so on and so forth. But choosing to stay true to your values and saying, hey, no, the data speaks for itself. People who are engaged, that have a purpose that they're following, knowing that their leaders empathize towards their situations and works within their situations. Typically, the numbers have spoken for themselves. The results have been uncanny. The awards we've gotten have been uncanny. But then I also saw the opposite effect of actually following a principle where I had to be tough on people unnecessarily. And I saw the result of that, which was not great. So really seeing the success of having people excited to be at work, knowing that they're valued at what they do, their contributions are valued, that they have ownership in what they're doing, and they're held to a level of autonomy. just coming together, that responsibility that they have towards what they own has led to incredible results as we've seen Falcon grow. And just, we completely passed the 1 billion mark. We're now at 1.4 billion, and we continue to keep growing. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. That's fantastic. Ash, and you make such good points on that, because as you stated in the data, right, if that many employees are disengaged, employees are a really big investment, right? And they are our greatest asset at companies. But if they're that disengaged and we're making that kind of investment in them, that's really money that's not being used optimally or the best way possible. And at the end of the day, I think it's just treating people like they're valuable, right? Like they're human and they're important. So
Yeah.
Maybe kind of transition to a different piece, because I know that empathy and purpose sometimes get talked about as like a soft skill, and it's not really an aid to strategy and growth. CMOs are often really pulled between that short-term campaign results, right? You spoke about that lead gen, and then the long-term brand building. So I'm curious, like, how do you ensure that your marketing stays aligned with the growth goals of the company? And then where do you find, I guess, some of the friction points to be able to make that happen and stay true to who you want to be as a brand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, it all begins with everyone's why, right? Why are they here in this environment? And a lot of times for some individuals, it's that they've been called to create, and they want to be able to be in an environment where they can create something and have something they say, hey, this was my defining project. This would define who I was. Now you align that why with the overall purpose of the company. Again, the big purpose that Falcon has is that we are out here to help as many people as possible. We've even went as far as saying that, hey, we are the good guys, we wear the capes, knowing that we're competing against commission-only advisors that typically have a conflict of interest. So it's reminding the team that, hey, we're actually out here to help people and almost be the hero. Like, we're trying to save people from possibly giving up their finances or giving their finances to someone who could potentially not give them the best service possible or give them the right advice that is right for them. So now when we put that, hey, our North Star is helping individuals, then we have to ask ourselves, does our North Star align with your why, right? And what I found is that when people's whys are aligned with the North Star of helping individuals, then the metrics follow along. So our goal is to grow as a firm. If we're saying, hey, we want to help as many people, well, we need to be able to create campaigns collaboratively that puts our message in front of those individuals so that we can then help them. And we take it a step further. We don't only help people that become our clients. We help people that end up not becoming our clients. We give them tidbits anyway. So every campaign that we create is very generalized to helping those individuals. And as long as we have that alignment, then the firm's goals are met. Now, the friction is, this is a foreign concept. As you mentioned, a lot of times people find that empathy is a soft metric. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's leadership that says, hey, I want you to get this done and get it done now. They believe in an accountability approach, but it's like more of a dictating. Like, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that, and I want you to tell me by the end of the day where you're at, blah, 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 blah. That could work in the short term. But when you sit there and you wonder why in a couple of years or maybe even a few months where your team is disengaged, again, for me, I think one of my weaknesses and strengths in this business, in this job, is that I am an empath. So when I can tell someone's off, it's either they're not feeling well because they need to go home, they're sick, they need to go, or there's something that's really emotionally bothering them. And typically I try to get to the roots of it. And a lot of times it could be the fact that hey, you know what? I feel like I'm a task list person, a task list individual. When I came here to be a creative marketer, I'm just checking tasks off the list. I don't feel engaged in my role. I feel that I am not appreciated in my role. Things like that come up when you have these deep conversations, where I think that the challenge for me is playing that middleman of knowing that at the end of the day, upper management, or if you're working for a company that's 100% run by an owner, that's 100% owner of the company, but has a different mentality or approach in doing business, you still have to stay true to yourself, right? But you still have to make that owner who is, essentially running the company happy. How do you do that? You go ahead, you make sure that the metrics that owner has are intact. If he says, hey, Ash, I want you to manage this way, that way, great, okay, awesome, I will acknowledge that. But when it comes to actually managing the teams, I have to stay true to what's actually working, which is everybody wants to feel heard. I have a team management style where people want to take ownership over the projects that they're working on. They want to work in a collaborative environment so they can go back and forth. They love ideocracies. Ideocracy meaning that every person's idea and contribution is valued, and we can go back and forth until we get to the truth. And really the friction has been just like, hey, just have to be that middleman. Just because one area of the company is saying, hey, you have to be this way, it doesn't mean you have to be that way for the rest of your department. And at the end of the day, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And then you're able to carry that that through all the way through, to the client experience, and the customers will tell you that, right? By if they stick around, if they feel like, they're not just getting results, but if they, in down markets, right, you might see AUM start to, head out the door. But if it does remain sticky, those assets are sticky, it's really a lot of times because they're willing to weather that down market, because they've enjoyed the experience, with your firm. So
it's all about the flywheel. Great marketing, great process in terms of sales, and then great service. And then once that client becomes a client, serving them the best way possible, creating so much value that they then turn into ambassadors to bring on other clients. It's the flywheel that keeps going in a circle. So to your point, I mean, Q1, Q2 was rough, as everyone's aware with the tariffs that were happening. People were afraid to be in the market. And for us, we had to really acknowledge that message. Hey, we understand that you're scared to be in the market. It's a scary time right now. We really don't know what is going on. We acknowledge that, but hey, let us at least help you with your taxes. Every person that in high net worth needs help with tax minimization, help with so we really had to change our messaging towards the value and the pain point that we could solve when things were down. But ultimately, to your point, when individuals and clients and prospects are speaking to happy, engaged business development specialists, happy and engaged advisors, then the flywheel works for itself. I mean, when you have individuals that are giving the best service, we're aligned to, hey, I am here to help you despite what's going on. You need us actually because the market's really bad right now. Here, let us guide you during this turbulent time. So all of that comes together. And if you don't have an environment that cultivates that, then everyone gets treated like a number. You have to imagine how many advisors got fired during that time. How many hey, you just don't care about me, so I'm going to go to someone who does. And we align our messaging to that, hey, we care.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And those advisors leave and those clients leave a lot of times with them, right? They'll take that book with them. Yeah. Exactly. So Ash, we have a number of topics to hit on today. I want to make sure our listeners get an opportunity to hear from you. So, in this era of, high stakes situations, we've talked about down markets and crises, and even like you said, market downturns. How do you maintain a sense of purpose and empathy while, trying to make some quick strategic decisions, right? You maybe had to pivot to tax planning or other areas. How do you try to maintain that sense of purpose and empathy?
Well, absolutely. So a couple things in terms of how our messaging evolved during that time. That was just all marketing and understanding of the market at the time, of the customer base, if that makes sense. But outside of what was going on internally, I recall we were dealing with a lot of friction, a lot of challenges, a lot of drama that, with people just going through challenges of just the stress of the markets being down, losing clients, and maybe expectations being a little bit over the top. So how do you maintain empathy in those scenarios where maybe some team members aren't performing as well, or maybe some people are just down and you have to try to keep them up? For me, during that time, it was just reminding me what my why was. Right, because when the company was underperforming, again, the market was underperforming. So as a result, companies start to underperform. And then when companies underperforming, we're always looking to blame as to what it is. Is there an issue, a kink in the system that's causing for this underperformance, even though there probably isn't? Well, what happens is when people are stressed out, they start to react in a stressed out fashion, right? They start to do things that are outside of their character, or they look back on, they're like, oh, I didn't mean it that way, but it still happened and it hurt that employee and so on and so forth. Now we have to make it right. So for us during that time, the expectations had gotten a little bit more intense. Team members were struggling, and we had to make a decision, or at least I and the CEO of our company had to make a decision of like, are we going to be tough on everyone, knowing that everyone's tough on everybody already? Everyone is having a hard time during this downturn. And how do we want to present ourselves to our employees? And what the decision that we had to have, or the conversation me and our CEO had to have, is like, why are we here? Are we here to really just beat on people and just do exactly what the CEO tells us to do just because it satisfies the frustration that's happening at the current time? Or are we truly here to make people's experience a positive one, an environment where they enjoy coming to work? And that, are they willing to fight for us when times get tough? So it was that conversation that really hit home for me, was reminding myself, because I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat that I was the most empathetic leader during that time either. When you have pressure coming from all directions, including from a leadership that says, hey, you need to be this way and be tougher. And if things aren't happening the way they're supposed to, start to the top and so on and so forth. Well, I saw firsthand when I shifted with something that was outside of my character, where I followed an approach that I thought was the right thing to do because I was just doing what I called my job, right? I saw how it affected my department. I saw how it affected the individuals in that department. I saw the looks on their faces. I saw the relationship they had with me wasn't positive. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, shucks, I genuinely care about these individuals, but my actions are not aligned to that care. So I could say I care about them. And there is leadership that will do that to you. They will say, hey, I care about you after I emotionally just slapped you in the face. But it's not, I still care about you. And I've seen that time and time again. I'm sure there's individuals in the audience who are listening to this who could recall a leader who literally just humiliated them, but instead of taking responsibility, would come in and just try to play off like it wasn't that big of a deal. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good, fist bump? No, that doesn't solve the problem, right? Yeah. So I had to go as far as sitting there with the team and letting them know that I first of all had to accept my mistakes that I made. I was not aligned to my why. My why is that I came to this environment to create an environment for everyone to be happy and positive and to be engaged and them to enjoy the place that they're working at. And although we are going through challenges, although there's levels of underperformance that we need to fix and resolve, taking an aggressive, violent approach, it was completely backfiring. It was not working. So I had to come back to sticking to my guns, knowing the risk of sticking to my guns, which was, hey, I'm going to stick true. I'm going to focus on my why. I'm going to create this environment of empathy. And if this is the reason why I'm not around here long enough, so be it. Because at the end of the day, I'm saying my values, right? And in doing so, I will never forget one of the biggest conversations. I think it was what's the word I'm looking for? It changed the game. Was a conversation I had with one of our marketing assistants where I sat her down and said, hey, I am not going to do what other leadership does and tell you that everything's okay and you have to like me and just be okay and shake you up, like forgive me, but shake you up. No, I'm going to tell you that I want you to believe all of the negative thoughts that you have about me, and let me take the time to prove you wrong in the most positive way possible. Let me prove by actions that I am truly an empathetic leader and I do truly care. And that kind of opened this dialogue of, oh, wow, like, so you're not here to try to manipulate me and tell me that how I'm supposed to feel. You're telling me I'm valid for feeling the way I'm feeling, and you're going to, through actions, prove to me that you're not that person. And at the end of the day, you can sit here as leaders and be like, we don't owe our employees anything. I don't owe anyone anything. I'm a leader. I'm a CMO or I'm CEO. I'm this and that. Just deal with it. Do your job. But, if I had only taken that approach, I wouldn't have a department today. And funny enough, sticking to those guns and being patient through the challenges. Well, what happened in the market? The market changed. We had a 2,000% increase in the market. People who stayed and stuck to their guns, which again, a lot of our messaging is like, you have not lost until you've sold. So just stay put, right? But seeing the market did its own thing anyway, and things started to succeed anyway. Well, I'm glad that we pivoted in terms of the culture of our department at the right time, because once the success started coming in, it doubled down. And people saw that, hey, no, Ash does care. Oh, Falcon does care. We all care for each other. And then I think it was a little bit afterwards, that's when the awards and everything started coming through. And today now I have this very engaged team where each and every one of them could be leaders in their own right, which I love.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing, right? And you're able to build, really a group there that that cares at the end of the day and is able to kind of stick it through. And like you said, I think that's so important, particularly for the generations that are coming into the workforce today, that leaders do not invalidate other people's emotions. So maybe turning to a very common topic that we run into in marketing, Ash, and that's in the area of marketing as a revenue engine and not a cost center, right? Some organizations, they still see marketing as this cost center. Now, what have you found to be some of the most effective ways to kind of shift that perception? And then in shifting that perception, what were some of the barriers that you run into when trying to, directly link marketing to revenue?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the conversation is very simple. Good marketing, any generalized good marketing, if you look at the stats, for every dollar spent, you're getting $2 or $3 back. Now, great marketers, great and excellent are doing even better than that. Right. And that's something that's really stood out for, especially in the financial industry, is that a lot of firms are afraid to take that next level, that next step. Merger and acquisition is prominent, right? So it's very rare that you have a firm like Falcon that's 100% organic, meaning that all everything that we get comes from our marketing efforts. We don't buy firms. Now, the challenge with now, how do we introduce this to the market? This new concept? Well, it's very simple. You buy a firm. it takes 30 years for you to get your money back, right? You just dropped 100 million on a firm and you're getting a 0.03% return year over year until you get your money back. Whereas with marketing, you're dropping 100,000 a month or let's say $1 million for the year. Well, when you're collecting and gathering assets and you're closing clients, you're garnering assets, well, the lifetime value of those customers eventually pay for themselves. So you get your money back a lot faster. And at the end, when you look at the end of the year, you're looking like, oh my gosh, for the $1 million I gave towards marketing, I got $3 million in return. That's a massive return. So the friction, the challenges that people have in really buying into this is that it does involve an investment. And a lot of times most people don't want to make investments, or they call it indirect investments, and things they're not going to see right away. You can't put money into marketing the first month and expect a result that month. But some firms or some companies or small businesses are so back against the wall that they can't take a risk like that, where like if they don't see a return within the month, they'll start to freak out. So really you have to buy into like, hey, I'm buying into this. This is an investment. And no, I'm not going to see a result in the first week. I'm not going to see a result in the first month. But when I look at the end of the quarter, oh, okay, this wasn't too bad. I can look back at this and be like, all right, I got something out of this entire experience. If I look at it for the end of the year, okay, I invested this much and got this much back. There's something that we did right. And had I just stuck my guns, we'd see those returns. So it's really just changing that perception. Like, hey, it's not a slot machine. You're not putting money in and immediately getting money out, but it's an investment. And companies like Falcon, we're putting back like 12 to 15%, which is uncanny, and back into marketing, because that's how much he believes in marketing today, right? And how much we believe as a firm in marketing. So, but again, I've run into businesses, at the agency level, at the sole proprietor level, where they're just so back against the wall that they can't even see past the investment. In their mind, they're just trying to put out one fire after the next. So if they could start to look at this like, hey, I could possibly get a 1 to 3 return, a 3 to my 1 return if I just am patient with a good marketing strategy and I'm looking at it from a quarter by quarter, year by year perspective, then that's the way to do it. And then judge yourself the next couple of years, the growth of your business. If you're growing, 10, 15, 30% year over year, that's incredible results.
100%. Ash, you have a ton of experience, not just with Falcon, but, with a lot of other organizations as well. And it's common for us to see a breakdown between marketing and sometimes product development and even sales. And so just maybe before we conclude, I was kind of hoping to maybe get, a sense from you of, what is one of like the best ways to be able to create that alignment and to avoid a breakdown between, say, product development, the sales team, and marketing. What have you done, or what have you found to be the most effective way to align those teams?
So great question. I'll tell you there's one area of what we just spoke. We have marketing, we have sales, and we have the product. In terms of matching product and really killing it at the advisor level, that is a constant work in progress. We are so close to nailing that, but had some incredible success in our marketing and our business development. So I'll speak to that more specifically, and then hopefully you happen to have me back, I'll share some success from the overall as a whole. But really, it's collaboration, communication. That is it. The marketing and the business development team work hand in hand. We are working our way to having a closer relationship with the advisors as well, but we're not there yet. But up to this point, it's that collaboration amongst two departments that work really well together and listen to one another. So for example, the conversations that marketing is always having with our business development team is, what can we do to make the process more seamless for you guys? What are objections that you're running into that a piece of collateral can resolve? Right. And then the business development team, they are the best at gathering data and sharing data back to us to enhance our messaging, our campaigns, so on and so forth. So that back and forth feedback loop that we have has led to the incredible results. I mean, right now, to give you an example, overall conversion, the industry standards 8 or 9%. These are shared leads. These are leads that we compete for, as well as our own marketing campaigns. We are converting at 14% because of that strategy. It's because of that communication, listening to our BD team members express their concerns. Hey, our cadence needs some optimization. Hey, we're running into some issues, and this is the area. Hey, I feel like our time is being wasted when we should be focused more on here. And prior to my involvement, I think it was like, hey, you just do your job and shut up. Now it's like, hey, no, we're listening to that feedback. Let's update our cadences. Let's make the process a little bit smoother and more seamless. Yeah. And the results have spoken for themselves. I think we end up breaking Q3 multiple all-time highs of sales qualified leads. Now, as those trickle down into closes, those are things that we're constantly working towards and improving. But that top of the funnel, we've killed it for that very reason, the feedback loop. That is everything.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's interesting to your point, having that collaborative communication shares insights. You're able to learn across, the whole firm. And the other thing about, this particular industry is in a down market, as much as assets may be leaving a particular firm, that's happening across all of the firms, right? And so if there's assets in flight, as we might say that, and they'll land back with the firms where their current customer base has felt, heard, has felt like they've had a good experience, right? So even though those down markets may feel like, headwinds, it's headwinds for everybody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, right? I think a lot of new client acquisition could happen, especially during those more difficult times. So, Ash, really want to thank you for joining us today. That was a wealth of information. Thanks for joining us as well to our listeners on this series of the Bliss Business Podcast that we call Marketing with Purpose. We hope that today's conversation really sparks some new ideas for you. For now, hoping to align your strategy, your execution, and your purpose in the work that you're doing at your firm. And if you found this valuable, right, this discussion, please like, subscribe, and even share this episode, and help keep the conversation going out there. And remember, right, great marketing isn't just about selling; it really serves. And so we look forward to seeing you on the next Marketing with Purpose series.